right, welcome back to Mr. G's EV Hangout community where the rising tide lifts all boats. Tonight, we're going to share all the data. How much, how far, how long, why? Well, we might not be able to answer the question of why, but we definitely can get into the numbers. So diving right in, we're really going to just go down the list of just very practical. What are the components? How did you arrive at these numbers? We have some estimates in here. And if you're ever wondering and you're watching this, what type of conversion do you want to do? How much is it going to cost you? The one thing I will say right away is if you're thinking about saving money by doing conversion, that is not going to happen. This is unless you're very clever. But for the most part, you're actually spending a lot of labor, which you might not account for. And, you know, in the end, you should do this for the fun of it. You should do it because you want to learn more about your vehicles or engineering, or you want to share a cool project with someone. And, in the end, you'll save money, but not right away. Okay. So we got a lot of great people in the house. Talik, co-host in the house. How you doing?
Hey, Mr. G. What's going on tonight?
All right. Talik's been driving EV for a long time. Doesn't have a conversion, but he's got his hands dirty, working on all kinds of stuff, helping out Johnny. On location with Johnny. How you doing?
Hey, what's happening?
All right. Johnny's got a really cool conversion that is super desired in an old school vehicle. We're going to get into it, and he saved money doing that, but very creative. Like I said, if you want to save money, you got to be creative. And I've got a good example on there as well. Kevin, DIY Kevin is in the house. Probably saved the most money out of everyone here. And he's got a great conversion coming up. How you doing, Kev?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
We're going to roll around quick. We want to get started with Kevin. We got Jonathan Knight in the house, a.k.a. Mr. Scanner. He's got the Civic. How you doing, Jonathan?
Great.
All right. Jeffrey from the EV Riders is in the library. He's going to take out some books. How you doing, Jeffrey? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
And we got Tom Summers, the excitable Tom Summers, the El Rayo doctor. He is
driving cross country in my Tesla right now. But hats off to you guys. I love to see the EV Riders in our group too. That's really awesome.
Yeah, man, that's great stuff. I appreciate everybody being here. And we got Justin just listening in. Plus, last but not least, Frank Dobbs, a.k.a. 11-inch DC.
Formerly known as.
All right. But Frank, thanks for being here. Frank's going to help us with the Excel sheet, and Jeffrey's going to help. Forgive me, there might be spelling mistakes. There might be errors in the formula. We're going to get around to it. It's really just a ballpark to give you an idea. It's probably really what you should look at before you get started. Talik, you want to add anything before we jump to Kevin?
Yeah, just so if you're watching this, we're just trying to answer the question you may have of like, you want to do a conversion and you're really excited about it, but how much, the all important question, how much does it cost? What's basic to advanced,
Yeah, and something I always tell people is, please don't jump all the way into the deep end of the pool. You might want to try a EV bike or a scooter, and then get into like a VW Bug, and then from there you could go crazy. Although I will tell you, motivation is high with the bigger the project, so maybe you do have to jump in. But anyway, let's get to the numbers. So, Kevin. What was your approach, and can you run through the numbers? So what is this thing, Kevin? The Hummbug? What is that?
Yeah, two M's in Hummbug, but that's okay. This is a VW based kit car that was made in the 90s, maybe 2000s. Fiberglass body on top of a full sized Volkswagen Beetle frame. And this was a project I had bought from a friend of mine. Yeah, there's some good examples on there. The company is long out of business. This is what they look like. It looks like a mini Hummer. I get stopped everywhere I go in this thing. People love this car. Nobody knows what it is.
Cool.
So I had bought this from a friend of mine as an abandoned project. He had gotten maybe 13 years before I got it. He put a bunch of lead acid batteries in it, the motor and motor controller and everything, but he never really got it working. All the batteries expired. At first, he was like, I want to give you this car for free. Just get it out of here. I'm like, oh, that's great. And then he started doing the math on how much he spent in just tires and parts. And the kit itself was like $8,000. He had it installed at the company that made the fiberglass body. All the money he spent. So he backstepped a little bit and said, you got to give me something for this car. So I gave him $1,000. That came, yeah, it pretty much looks like that still today. It came, in rough shape, but the motor was there. That's the motor. It didn't look that good. And there was a controller, which I ended up not using, but we'll say this is one route to doing your conversion and maybe doing it cheap, is taking on somebody else's failed electric car project. There's pluses and minuses on all that. I mean, somebody abandoned this project on purpose. What was that reason? So, in my case, it was just shift in priorities. So I like to do everything on the cheap. I don't have a lot of disposable income. I got 2 kids and, real cars and houses to pay for. So this is all on the side, and I'm doing this extremely cheap. So, the donor car itself got me started at $1,000. The controller, I ended up replacing that controller with something else that was more reliable, that I bought off of Frank, actually. I was resourceful in finding my batteries and found some that were being thrown out, basically, and I got them for nothing. But this is the big trade-off of time versus expense on these things. So these were all random batteries out of different crashed cars, from warranty replacements. They were just kind of like, haul them out of here and do what you want to do with them. We just don't ever want to see them again. So with that, I got batteries of different health levels. Some had issues and so forth, and I spent a lot of time. There's 8 of these battery modules in this car, and I've probably killed like 15 of them, maybe more.
Gotcha.
For a second. Oh, that wiring is ugly. So my thinking also on this car was I did everything on the cheap, and I did kind of like one step at a time, to make sure I really liked this car, something I wanted to do. I've had a lot of hobbies I've sort of given up on in the past, a lot of other hobby cars that I've had. So rather than go all in with a big Tesla motor and all the expense and everything, I dipped my toe in little by little. And, in doing that, I've paid over and over again. So initially I had all the batteries in here with no charger and no BMS. Well, that was a reason I killed a lot of batteries. You can cheap out on certain things, and certain things I recommend don't do that. BMS is one of them. So, my trade-off was, because these batteries were free, I didn't cry too bad when I killed a few. Excuse me. At the same time, they're not too hard to change on the side of the road, which I've done a few times. But
you change the batteries on the side of the road?
Yeah, I've had to swap out batteries multiple times on the side of the road. Now,
you're as crazy as I am. That's funny.
Yeah, that's why we get along so good.
Don't try that at home, kids.
Yeah. Well, this is an unsealed battery box, so this car is not weatherproof. Without a charger and all the BMS wiring in there, it's real easy to get these things in and out. So You can see 6 of the 8 modules there, pretty easy to get to. The others are more difficult.
What kind of batteries were these?
These are from Volkswagen e-Golf. That was their compliance car they made in 2016 to 18 or so. And they're pretty decent form factor modules. But here's another mistake that I made. I can go on forever on my mistakes, but I didn't do the calculations of how far can I go on how much battery and all that. I just did what can I physically fit in this car without sacrificing too much passenger space and difficulty of installation, wedging them into uncomfortable areas. So I put 8 kilowatts of batteries in here without figuring out that's only going to take me 20, 25 miles. So was that a good strategy? I don't know. I mean, I did, for very cheap, I did determine that I like this car. I like to drive it. It's fun and something I want to pursue further. And then I can double, triple my battery capacity, which I intend to do. But I, dipped my toe in the water before jumping with both feet, just to make sure this was something that I liked doing.
Yeah, Kev, I like that approach, because a lot of people jump in and then they can't finish the project and it ends up being a nightmare. But yeah, if you get something that's already driving and you're just upgrading the batteries, you're focused on one thing at a time. And there is a learning curve, like you said. And luckily you got some recycled batteries and you're all right with trying it out. And then you found out the hard way with the BMS. This is something, I have some stories about BMS as well. I did something similar. So we're going to cover another example of this.
Yeah.
Once we get through a few more examples. So, yeah. All right, cool.
So
man. That's a good approach.
There's pluses and minuses to that. So in having an assortment of random crappy batteries made my car less reliable. Having them not waterproof makes it, easy to service this and pull them out as I kill these battery modules. But on the other hand, starting out from something waterproof and sealed would give you more use. Starting out with no charger in the car was, okay, but then the hassle of charging all of these batteries one module at a time, which is what I was doing, would be enough to discourage most hobbyists from going further into this project. Going out at midnight to go charge one more battery module and then watch that it's not overcharging, and then a couple hours later switching to the next one, one at a time charging, probably would have discouraged any sane person. But fortunately I'm not sane, and I kept going at this thing.
Well, let me interrupt for a second. So kind of what you're saying is a large caveat on the zero cost for the batteries. The cost is in the labor.
Zero cost for the batteries and cheaping out on the chargers and so forth. And
yeah, but in the interest of this particular theme of when it comes to the cost, I think you did cover, the caveat of, look, I got them for free, but it came with the learning curve. The learning curve was the cost. So, it comes out, do you have more time than money or more money than time, so.
Right, exactly. And, do you want to start out with the right charger, or do you want to spend a lot of time screwing around with a charger that's not quite right and trying to get it to work? Well, depends how much time you have and how much you want to learn, things like that.
Yeah, cool. So let's run down the total cost.
So controller, I got a good deal on $500. DC to DC, I learned by putting some bad ones in first, and now I put in a good one, $400. Charger, cables, motors, metering, something to monitor your system, suspension upgrades to handle the additional weight, and that's why I put this in here. Like, this needed more than the stock VW suspension, not just because it was old and worn out, because I've got more weight. I put in these adjustable coilover shocks. There are specialty tools that it would be good to buy, like certain crimpers and testers and things like that. And yes, you can cheap out and crimp stuff with your pair of pliers, but you're going to sacrifice the reliability of your crimps, things like that, as an example. So,
This one says NA.
yeah, well, and that's a valuable feature there is what did I have to go buy my wife so that she would be okay with her letting me spend a little more money on my car this week and those practical matters like that. So I put that in there.
So drum roll, please.
Yeah. Well,
How much was the total?
$3,500 or something like that. But, there's a lot of asterisks there. I purposely don't keep track of how much I spent on this thing because I know it would be depressing. I spent all this over a large amount of time. At the same time, I would buy parts and then sell them once I figured out that's not the route I wanted to go. And sometimes I made money on those deals.
But I mean, think about it. I mean, this is a great research project. Even, I mean, you kind of got that teenager spirit for life. You're like, I'm going to get a project car and I'm just going to drive it, and as I go, things are going to fall off of it. And I'm going to put stuff back on. Right. And so that's a great, that's an approach. That is an approach. And I applaud you for doing that. So for $3,500, give or take $100,000 of this and that. No, not $100,000, but give or take probably another 5,000 in ups and downs and stuff like that. Overall, this is basically what it cost you, that's great, man. What a good move. Yeah, in the end, it worked out well. So I got into this community, which I didn't know existed. I've learned a lot. I probably got my current job by knowing what I know about the electronics of electric cars. That's really cool. Helped. And the networking and community and all that, which are intangible benefits of getting into this project, have been really good for me. So, and also the products that I'm developing now for the electric car industry that I think will make this more profitable down the road, all inspired by the cool stuff that I've learned while being on this project. Cool. Yeah. And shout out to EV Riders. This is the club that you've been working with. Yeah, this website is horribly out of date, but that's Frank's Mercedes there. Oh, right. Yeah, that's cool. Nice. Wow. And, yes, the club is very much still functioning, and we're circulating through members and cars. But based in San Diego, we've got a place where we can we get together and work on our electric cars together.
Awesome. Nice. I need to come down there and do a highlight video on you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, give us some notice so we have a good showing that day. But
is tomorrow good?
Only on Saturdays we're there. So
yeah, go ahead, Frank. Before, sorry about specialty tools. One of the benefits of becoming a member, if you're near San Diego, is that we have a lot of the tools and can help you, show you how to use them.
Yeah. And it's great working with you. You can borrow something. Oh, sorry, Kev, go ahead.
Yeah, some of these crimpers and other tools like that are expensive and you need to use it once. It's hard to think about buying one.
So pretty cool stuff. So also we should mention that EVLC is part of this community. A lot of people have got together. Kev volunteers with EVLC, and there's been some camaraderie around that. One of the vehicles we're going to profile tonight is the VW bus that Tom donated, and we built that last summer. So we're going to get to that. All right, Kev, this was great, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, I had oral surgery today, and I'm on a lot of medicine. So I'm gonna need to sign off and
go take it easy, man.
Yeah, but thank you.
All right, Kev. Thanks a lot. See you later. Okay. All right. So I want to before we get to the next person, actually, Talik, you think we should do the basis, the big comparison, the big question that everybody asks, or do another profile?
Yeah, I think, well, since we had Kevin's example, his was kind of on the low end because he did so much DIY and everything. We now have kind of a good, quote, baseline. Aside, unless you got everything for free given to you, that's about as cheap as you're going to go. So maybe let's go to the other end of the spectrum. What would be the most complex thing? Like what would be the most someone would pay for something like this without getting into like, Tim Allen super custom roadster type, but just picking, whatever's on this list is probably on the high end.
Right. Well, so let's do this one. So the highest number here is the 46,000. This is hypothetical. This was a student named Joe who asked me the question, why would you get a Tesla motor versus get, let's say, the Hyper 9? And the big difference is in the architecture of the voltage. So that, well, there is more differences than that, but overall, the Tesla motor is going to give you like a crazy amount of horsepower. I think like 800 horsepower or something like that. And then your Hyper 9 is going to give you, I think 175 foot-pounds of torque and maybe 100 horsepower, but it's a completely different animal. It comes down to whether or not you want to just change the motor, like your gas engine to electric, or do you want to change the whole drivetrain? So are you trying to break records here, or are you basically just trying to replace maybe an old gas engine that you had before? Without getting too technical, we could just run down the numbers. I guess we could show some photos. That would probably be helpful. So here's your Hyper 9 motor with about 150 volt architecture. And just keep in mind, this would bolt in pretty easy to like most vehicles. And you're going to get 120 horsepower with 172 foot-pounds of torque. That's pretty good if it's half the size of your little 4-cylinder engine. So think about it, you got a little 4-cylinder engine, you replace it with this, you're going to outpower that original motor like on a VW or something. So this is a fantastic replacement for your VW, for everything in that horsepower range. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have, your large Tesla drive unit, which right here, this comes with a 1-year guarantee, and you have to have 400 volts, but you're going to get almost 800 horsepower.
And that's because that's a dual motor setup, right?
No, it looks like it, but one side's the inverter and one side, like this is the inverter. And this
I meant the whole kit. The whole page is a dual motor.
This is a dual. I didn't mean to pick on this one.
All right.
I was going for a single. You're right. Where is that? Oh, here we go. Okay. So this is like 12 grand, and you're going to get, does it say the horsepower here? I don't quite see it. But it's a lot. This is like, this is meant for like a, I don't know, what is a Tesla Model S, like 5,000 or 6,000 pounds, So it's like, if you throw this in a small car, it's going to be amazing. Anyway, so let's get to the numbers. So, I mean, if you want to get technical, we could do a technical thing on a different podcast. But as far as the numbers go, you're at 12,000, and you don't need.
Also, like to remind. Sorry, I like to throw in here that we're looking at retail prices. So you might be able to find these prices, if you pick up a Model S motor from someone else or something. But this is a whole complete retail package in this example.
That's a very good point, and that just goes back to Kevin's situation. Obviously, very, very DIY, very extreme. But yeah, like if you go get a Tesla yourself that's crashed, you could pull it out yourself. But you'd have to, buy the T2C, which is the controller that would, that talks to the inverter. So that's the technical side. But the money side is, and don't get me wrong, these are all ballpark retail figures. So you don't need a controller because it's in there. You're going to need batteries. Let's assume that you have 30,000, like a 30 kilowatt pack. You're going to spend about $8,000 to $10,000 on that pack. So we're assuming that, and then So we're putting 8,000 in. You're going to need boxes and hardware and custom made bracketry to fit this in your car. You might need some sort of subframe or new sort of suspension to make this work, because it's not going to just bolt in, because you don't have a Tesla. You're putting it in a vehicle that was not built for this. You're going to need your 12 volt to your DC to DC, your high voltage to low voltage. That's $1,000. You might need power steering, 1,500 maybe. And I mean, you literally could we didn't even put in charger. So just put in another 1,500 for charger. You could put in for cabling and contacting. You literally could just do that down the line. So maybe this is not true. Meters, this might be the case, but we'll just put in 0 for now. Cabling, you're going to need some cabling, and you're going to need some things that make maybe heating and cooling. So it actually is realistic. So with the car being $15,000 to start, you're up at $50,000. Talik, that's $50K. You got that on a conversion? Is that saving you money?
I mean, at this point, I'm just going to go buy a used Model Y. But yeah, if you're wanting to, the whole point of this is that we want to convert existing, and sometimes classic cars to this, and it really depends on, the reasons you would do it, and that's like a whole nother podcast. But assuming you're here for the reasons that you want to convert it, you just want to know how much it costs. You can now kind of nail down, okay, how I can now start planning for that with my budget and start doing a timeline of how to what to start with.
Yes. And, to highlight, how much fun this would be. I mean, just imagine like a small vehicle, like a Porsche 911 with a Tesla drive unit in the rear. It's going to look like this. You're going to shred tires, so it's just like, I mean, it's possible. But yeah, you're talking like $50,000, and 15,000, assuming for the original body. So without alarming anybody too much, let's move to the next comparison, which would be just replacing that motor. And that would be your Hyper 9. And that's, let's say, $15,000 less. So you're still in that $35,000 ballpark. You've got, let's say, $5,500 for your motor controller. We're assuming about $10,000 for your batteries. You got boxes. You got an adapter plate. You don't have to worry about the trans subframe. You have your DC to DC, you have your power steering, and we should probably put in your charger and maybe some cabling as well. So now you're at, let's say, 3,700. So you're still about 13,000 distance. So is it worth it? 13,000? Well, you got to decide. Are you going for high performance, but you're also going to change the vehicle a little bit? Are you just trying to be a little bit better than the way the vehicle was before, or are you trying to break records and break the mold? So anyway, Jonathan, you want to weigh in on this a little bit, those two comparisons? Maybe since you're up next, you could weigh in on, what do you think of this? What do you think of those two comparisons?
Well, yeah, I think going with the Tesla is it's pretty costly for sure. So that would be a hard thing for me to get over, that cost.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
I don't know, like that truck, right? It's a pretty heavy vehicle. And I don't know if that 120 horsepower is going to feel pretty sluggish in that. So that's going to be also problematic, I think.
That's a good point.
We earlier, before we started the recording, somebody mentioned potentially needing a dual Hyper 9, right?
That's a possibility as well.
Getting the price right up there anyways.
Maybe with a big vehicle like that, the Chevy 3100. I mean, just keep in mind, some of these vehicles are not ideal for conversion anyway. I mean, they're really big. You might want to consider something smaller. I will say the Hyper 9 in a reasonably sized vehicle, it pulls pretty good. But I mean, look at the size of this thing. It's all steel. It's big. It was probably slow to begin with, but they're cool.
Yeah, and I mean, you're probably not drag racing it. I mean, if you were wanting to drag race it, you'd have to go with the Tesla for sure. But
have to, 100%.
But if you're just cruising, the boulevard with it, probably do fine with that Hyper 9.
Yeah, I would say so. And then okay. So now let's get into yours. If you got some photos you could send us. I should have asked earlier, but that's okay. You could just run down this list. What do you got here?
If you want me just to quickly, I can share a picture.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll stop presenting. Go ahead. So what year Civic is it?
It's a 75.
Oh, wow.
And
that's pretty cool.
So I basically did what all the advice says not to do, which is I bought a car that was not really a working car in any way.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
So it was rusty. The motor was completely seized up. It was missing a lot of parts. I had to get it towed to my house, which.
Oh, you got the tow picture. That means
it almost broke the axle just lowering it off of the truck. So I was starting from, pretty rough place.
You saved it from the crusher.
I did, exactly. Or basically just saved it from rusting into the ground. So if I were smarter, I probably would not have done this, but I'm not smarter. And part of the excitement for me was to really make something that was custom, So I kind of didn't want to start with a car that just looks like a standard, gas engine car that no one would know is an EV unless they asked me or they looked under the hood. I want to make something that, when it drives down the street, people notice it and people can tell it's not stock. So I'm happy to do all that work. It's fun for me, but it's definitely a lot of the cost of doing this goes into doing restoration work and a lot of labor.
Okay.
So the EV conversion, which is the numbers that I put in here, I think is relatively inexpensive. So just doing the EV stuff, I've been looking for bargains. I picked up the UQM 100 package from Thunderstruck, so that motor and the transmission was $6,000, as well as the controller. Now it's on sale. I missed that sale. I bought it before it was on sale.
It's 49% off.
I know. I saw
that. Is that a joke? Is that a joke? It's 49% off. Oh,
apparently.
Man. I'm sorry, John.
Well, technology moves pretty fast, so
yeah,
maybe it's obsolete already.
I think
right. That's a good point.
It's a good motor. It's just probably there's more popular ones out there.
Wow. Okay.
And then I went with the LG supercells that EV West has and I got 12 modules for $500 each. So I got my battery pack for $6,000. Then that's about a 20 kilowatt hour pack.
Is this it? You said?
Not that one. It's the it's that one right there.
This is what I think he's got in the Hummbug.
Okay.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe now he does. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
But those were for the kilowatt hours. They were cheaper than the the Tesla batteries that were available. So,
Got it.
and they also, the form factor worked really well because they're real compact. So I think I did pretty well with that. And then I'm building my own battery boxes from scratch. So that's mostly cost in steel and materials and labor things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just not going for the top of the line stuff, like going for stuff that seems to work pretty well. I think I've kept the costs down pretty well. And also, these costs, kind of like Kevin was saying, come over a lot of time. So I've been working on the car for 2.5 years. Most of the first half of it was all just restoration work before I even got into doing any EV type stuff. But, I'm picking up bits and pieces as I get to those stages. And so there's probably going to be some more costs before I'm done.
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah,
actually, plugging in the numbers into your thing, I was adjusting the number of miles in order to get to the right kilowatt hours. And I was pretty impressed, actually. It's putting me at 95 miles, which is more than what I was actually calculating. I was expecting probably around 60, which might be realistic, but I'd be happy with 60. I think it's not a long range vehicle for sure.
Well, it's pretty lightweight.
Yeah, it's very lightweight. The car, when I got it with the original engine in it, was I think they are around 1,900 pounds, like stock.
Wow.
I took about 450 out of that when I took out the engine. The motor and inverter is probably going back in around 200 pounds.
Is it 72?
75. But yeah, it's basically the same model. It hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I'm putting in probably around 350 pounds worth of batteries. And so I don't think I'm going to be adding a ton. I might end up adding 100 or 200 pounds to the original stock weight.
Nice. Pretty cool. I can't wait to see it on the road, man.
Me too.
Dude. I should be asking everybody this, but how do you stay motivated?
Okay.
It is I enjoy every step of the process.
What did Johnny say?
We're gonna bleep that one out. No, Johnny, not how we keep going, how we stay motivated. Earlier, Johnny did say though, when you were talking about racing, he was like, "No, question is always race."
Actually, staying motivated is not even the focus of this podcast. It's the money right now, but that is a question. So if you want to briefly answer that, but other than that, it's not the focus of this one.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's fine. I haven't had a problem, really, honestly. It's like I enjoy each step and like each part. When I was disassembling the car, I was just looking at YouTube videos about how to do it and, getting in there and pulling shit out. And, it's just like that's fun. And then you get done with that part and then you start researching the next part you got to do. And so.
Super cool. I think it's a great thing you're doing. Yeah, it's an interesting vehicle you picked. So, when you go to these Honda shows, I'm sure people are freaking out. What a cool idea.
Yeah, that or, a heretic. So there's a lot of people who are definitely on the side that you should never mess with the stock. And so no problem.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'll defend myself.
I think that culture will change eventually.
I think so. And the main thing is like this car would never run again. I mean, it would definitely rust into the ground. So I'm not taking a classic out of circulation. I'm resurrecting something that was definitely dead.
Yeah. So
that's definitely a similar thing with Johnny's was, he gets tons of comments on his Instagram stuff about like, oh my gosh, why would you ruin such a classic truck? And like, he always points out it was headed for the crusher, literally. and it was running really badly if it was running at all. So yeah, this is, you know, if you don't have to be fully bought into like the environmental reasons, but if it's anything about just saving a shell or a classic chassis, that alone is probably a good reuse before recycle or throw away sort of thing.
100%.
On just the body.
I mean, like you know, like someone might convert like an Alfa Romeo Spider, and yeah, the 4-liter engine or the 4-cylinder engine in a Alfa Romeo Spider is a work of art. It is like overhead valves, beautifully, you know, just Italian engineering, incredible, right? But if like that thing's dead, I mean, come on, toss it. That thing's like all rusted out, rocker panels and all that. Get it back on the road, give it some life. And let me tell you, this is what I always tell people: if the companies had access to good engineering when it comes to batteries, they would have put batteries in a motor in there in the first place. So there were reason the gas engines in there is because that was the best tech they had at the time, you know. So anyway, so
there's certain logic to picking a donor car. Like, why would you spend double for, you know, a classic car that has a running engine and numbers match? You know, just find some other car.
Yeah,
exactly. In fact, I think maybe later on when we're kind of capping up, let's get rid of the donor price on this graph. So we're looking at just what it was costing to do the electric part, because the donor, because that's kind of the big difference between some of these examples is, you know, like Johnny, he paid $600 for that shell, if he's telling the truth. And so really the donor price doesn't really cost, like, because a lot of people, the reason I'm bringing this up is that a lot of people have a car they already have. It's not a cost to convert it. So they're like, hey, I have this Carmen Ghia line around here, but it doesn't run. How much is it going to cost to convert it? So it'd be nice to do just apples to apples.
we could just get rid of it. Sure. Do you want to try that right now? How do you can't suppress, right?
Well,
I'll just zero it out.
Let's say that if you buy a half-finished project, then there is value in that.
Yeah. How do you do this that you could maybe Frank or Jeffrey could on the Excel sheet? Is there a way to temporarily suspend using the top row?
Yeah, you could hide that row.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Look at that. Hide row. That's pretty cool. Okay. Learned something new today. It's like
did it actually affect the bottom line though?
Yeah, it did. Look.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So now we're starting to see like the true cost of, like, you know, from you already have the car and now I'm going to convert it.
Yeah, super cool. Okay, so is Johnny available to give us the rundown for the Luxy?
Paging Johnny 5. Pick up your There's your microphone. Here we go.
Hi.
All right, Johnny 5 in the house.
Hello.
How dare you? I can't believe you turned this beautiful vehicle into a more beautiful vehicle. Now it's quiet and deadly. No, yeah, go ahead. Tell us the story, man.
Let's see. How far back do you want me to go? When I bought the thing at an auction, or?
Well, the brief story, and then we're just going to go through the numbers. You know.
What?
So
because you know he's got multiple videos. If you want to find out the true story about this, go to his YouTube channel on your own and watch this video. But yeah, just a quick story of
basically I got the thing at an auction in Oceanside, and it was going to get crushed if I didn't pick it up. And then I had various different engines in it over the years. Never got it registered, and then I finally decided to go electric on it. And you know, finally it's registered and on the road. So
it's so cool looking. It's so cool looking. I remember you had a gas engine there. It was really nice, well done. But now, let's talk about this motor real quick, and then let's get the numbers.
So it's basically just a Tesla small drive unit out of a rear Model S. They're a great little motor.
That's pretty cool. All right, let's run down the numbers. So we took out the price of the vehicle and we're just going with the motor. Now you say the motor was $2,000. Is that because you pulled it yourself or you got it used or something?
Basically, like I'm pulling all these prices off of just looking it up on Google and going on eBay type thing. Because these, you know, they kind of bounce around, but like $2,000 is roughly what I see them go for now.
Okay.
And then the T2C, those you kind of can't get around. You have to buy it at that price.
The other thing about his small drive unit is that you know, you don't really have to rebuild those, right? Unless it was like, well, submerged or whatever. But compared to the large drive unit.
Yeah, I'm finding out that you might want to.
Well, we can talk about that later. But
yeah, well, not because of differential, but because they actually have another issue with oil leaking into the inverter. But that could be another topic for another time.
It's amazing how small these are, but yet, what do you have, like 300 horsepower or something?
330, something like that.
Wow. I mean, that's awesome.
220 kilowatt, yeah, somewhere around there.
That's amazing. And somebody already pulled it, so you can just go to these eBay sites. Look at this, $2,000 for this already pulled motor. No
That's kind of what I like is nowadays. I mean, there's so many of these freaking cars now that
wow,
they're easier and cheaper to get than even like an LS or something if you're going to go the gas engine route. I mean, honestly though, they're cheap.
Yeah,
so,
this is pretty amazing how cheap this is. Look at this.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Because we're talking numbers, which came first? The choosing the i3 battery and then pairing the motor to the battery, or you picked the motor first and then found the battery for it?
Battery first, and then kind of matched the motor to it. And the battery specs, they call out for a 400 amp max, but I kind of just, you know, went a little over that because the motor does 670 amps, something like that on draw. So on max draw, but you're not, I mean, the fact that they're rated at 400 amps from the factory kind of just told me that, it'll probably do more. So I just kind of winged it.
Gotcha. And you only paid $2,500 for the batteries? About there? Or that's what they kind of cost? We're just going retail.
It's kind of what they kind of cost, and that's what I spent. That's what.
It's an i3 pack?
Yeah.
It's the middle one, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because they came in 3 versions.
Yeah, they have the 22 kilowatt hour and the 33 and the 42.
Yeah, look at that. And that fits in between the rails.
On a Toyota, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't impact his bed space at all. It's pretty awesome.
So you still have it's a work truck.
Mm-hmm.
Still a work truck.
Which means he also didn't have to pay for or make battery boxes because
it's a completely stock battery in there.
But maybe the trade-off here is, you know, he didn't do a subframe, but he did, and this is where his fabrication experience comes in. He did make what we talk about all the time is his DD on axle. So even though he didn't have to make battery boxes, he did still have the materials that, you know, to make the axle for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if people want to know more about this build, it's got a lot of videos about it. Oh, Chris Rocky Hernandez is joining. That's actually perfect timing. I want Johnny and Chris to meet. They got a lot in common with aerospace and engineering and stuff. So pretty cool. Yeah, let's go back to the breakdown. So boxes, nothing. Adapter plate, nothing. Trans, nothing. Subframe.
Nope.
Well, you kind of made that thing, the DD on.
How much
he did make
a on?
Oh, okay. So I think it was like $400 in material.
But let's just say someone bought that from you, or bought it from a fabricator. Would you say it's $2,000?
Yeah, if I made that for someone, I'd charge them like $1,500.
All right,
maybe $1,800. So yeah, I don't know, $2,000, the high end.
Yeah, okay. So that's fair. And then DC to DC, power. You don't have any power steering. Now the charger is interesting in this case, right? You're using a
Tesla charger.
That's super cool, but it's used.
Mm-hmm. And so is a DC-DC. That's also from a Tesla. It does 10 kilowatts.
Nice.
That's fantastic. And how would I find that on, let's say, eBay or something?
Just look up like Model S Gen 2 charger. You'll get a lot of the wall connectors, but
Yeah.
every now and then you'll get the actual.
Oh, here we go. I got it. So there you go. That's what's in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got
That'd be it.
Yeah. And you got to hack this at all? You got to do stuff to it?
Yeah, you put in a drop-in board from who the heck is it? Open Inverter. Yeah, he has a drop-in board for it. I think it was like I think they're like $80 or something. They're not very much.
Okay.
And
That's pretty cool. Is that this? No, that's not this.
you should be able to find it through if you type in Tesla Gen 2.
Is that Damian McGuire?
I think that's him, yeah. EV BMW, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one?
That's right. That looks right.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
actually pretty cool.
sorry.
Nice.
Is that it? Let me see. Oh yeah, that's it.
Sweet. Looks nice.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's cool.
Oh no, that's
right.
Logic. That's the wrong one. But well, whatever.
Yeah, you got the idea. So you go to
Yeah.
these people, you get the board, you put it in, cabling, contactors, and stuff like that. $600.
Yeah, roughly that.
Monitoring. You got a cool like display.
Oh, so that's an iPad. So whatever you can get an iPad for, or if you just have one. which
And
I
that's
did.
running what software or app?
Oh, that's the what is it? It's
Torque?
just
No.
it's what the TTC run or comes with. I forget what. Hang on. Let me look at my phone. I can't remember the name of it.
No, that's all good.
But
EV
that's
controls.
yeah.
That's it.
So for his iPad, that kind of replaces like an AEM screen, right?
Yeah, that does everything, including all the drive function and everything.
Okay. And then you got some suspension stuff, which you did a little custom, but also you just keep it stock as well, too, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, obviously, I've been upgrading it here and there, but
Yeah, you recently redid
That's-
your control arms.
it's been a year and a half since that.
Yeah, and then it's licensing and special tools. No. And then charger port. Boom. So the whole thing is about $11,000. I mean, think about it. For $11K, you got a pretty cool vehicle. I mean, that's this, and you use it all the time, right?
It's a daily. Yep.
Daily, and it's functional, and you use it for work and for fun. People
I
dig
kind of.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of built the thing like a tractor, so I think that's what people like about it. There's an old
Yeah,
video too. It's got a skid plate and bumper now and everything.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And you put a hitch on it too recently.
What's that?
You put a hitch on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some stay tuned to Johnny's channel. There's some update videos in the works.
Yeah. And the axles.
right.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff we did to it since this.
Super cool. So all right, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, we're making we got some I mean, this is a really good option. Here you got a 400-volt system, but it's only 11,000. So I think we're doing a good job here of explaining the big differences. We started with the Zero project, the most expensive project, the reasonable project, the creative project, like a restoration basically, and then they're like wow, if you're doing it all used and you're clever, you can get yourself a nice Tesla drive system. Pretty cool.
Ron, this might be a good time to bring up the bottom. I know it's not perfect formula right now, but the bottom where we sort of calculate, what is this money really getting me in terms of range and performance?
Oh yeah. Okay. So these are ballparks, but it depends on the weight of your vehicle. So let's say maybe Johnny, you could say if this is accurate. So if your vehicle weighs close to 3,000 pounds and you're doing 250 watt hours per mile, but with a 10% penalty for bad aero and a 20% penalty for big fat tires, and you're expecting 100 miles range and you're doing maybe a top speed of 65 miles an hour. I'm sure you go faster than that, Johnny.
Yeah.
Well, not sustained, but
Yeah.
Would this be accurate that you have a 33 kilowatt pack around there?
That's the size I have. Yeah.
So are these numbers, do you have 100 miles range?
I haven't tried it, but I'm assuming.
Okay.
well, I mean, now that your alignment's kind of fixed.
Yeah. Oops.
So this is like in the ballpark. And then if you assume 250 cost per kilowatt, $250 per kilowatt, but that's not what you paid. You paid a lot less. Instead of $8,000 in batteries, you paid $2,500, which we looked it up. That's actually like a possibility. You just like look at these like 1,200, 1,600, 3,000.
Yeah, is that like a repeatable? Is that a repeatable thing? Did you just get a smoking deal, or can I go and get one for that same cost right now? And then can I do it 10 times?
I mean, those are all on eBay right now, so I think you could.
Yeah, it has to do with the difference in modules because i3 modules aren't maybe they're not as in high demand as the Tesla one. So the secondhand market is it depends on which modules you actually go with.
So like if you have believe it or not, there are recycle companies. Chris, there's recycle companies that they procure this. Like they'll get 100 vehicles or 100 whatever. Like I've seen. It's actually terrifying. I've seen warehouses of batteries, and like there's one in Chatsworth, I think, area of LA. It's called Big Battery, and then there's one in Pennsylvania called Battery Hookup. It's just as far as the eye can see, it's batteries, like bigger than you can possibly imagine, and like companies give up on stuff or companies get a deal to like pull it all together. And so like, you probably, if you needed to, you might be able to get like 100 of the same thing, all together. So I don't know. It was a good question.
Yeah, there's a place in Tempe that does that in Arizona out here in Tempe. I've visited them already, and they specialize mostly in Tesla. But I like the idea of a different pack. There are different pack options.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is, as we talked about before, is that the i3 battery fits within the rails, the ladder rails, right, Ron, of the chassis.
Yeah.
And also that's the bonus of you don't have to make the battery boxes. It fits in there, and the battery box it came in is the battery box.
Yeah, which is interesting. So repeatable. That's probably depends on whether you can secure this stuff, but is it possible? Yeah, I guess so. But Johnny, you probably did it just to see if you could do it. I don't know, Johnny, you think you could get like 100 of the same pack if you were doing production?
Say that again. Sorry.
Could you get like 100 of those i3 packs if you were doing some sort of production run? Is that the route you take, or would you do something different? If you were going to do 100 Hiluxes, what would you do?
I'd find a yard that's breaking those BMWs down and call them direct, or like 10 of those places.
Now, I mean, that is a game of numbers there because the amount of i3s on the road is less than Model S's on the road.
Yeah, I mean, if honestly, if I did it again, I would use a Model 3 pack or Model Y.
Which one, the long range or standard range?
Whatever I could fit. But either one of those is like $4,500 usually.
Yeah, the standard range pack is around 50 kilowatt hour.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's probably a comparable example.
That's a way better setup. But at the time, this worked out pretty good.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, Chris, meet Johnny. Johnny, meet Chris.
Hey.
Hey, yeah, I've been actually messaging you. I'm the guy who's been bothering you on Instagram, asking you about your chassis and all that.
Sweet.
So
good to meet you.
Yeah, for sure. And we don't have to talk about all the details right now, but maybe we can chit chat next week if you're up for it. I have a opportunity through the National Science Foundation for some grant money to help me get this business off the ground. And I need to interview folks like you and others here on the call even. I'm going to talk to Ron next week about the same thing to make me eligible for this grant money. And so I just have a bunch of questions mostly about your build and how you did it. And I mean, I know how you did it, but some of the details are primarily about, what would you do different? And maybe these guys are even interested in it as far as like, what things do you wish you had in this truck? That kind of thing. Like you've built this great truck and, it's getting a lot of attention, but if you had to, I don't know, if you had to do it again, or what things is it lacking that you would love to have? I'm interested in stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's definitely a really cool conversation to have because, when did you first start your build, Johnny?
2022, like in the middle of the year.
Yeah. So one thing we talk about on this podcast a lot is like how fast this industry is moving and the technology. Because we had a whole episode where we talked about like the EV riders started with DC motors and all that. And so even in just the 2 years that since Johnny's truck started being built, there's been new products to come on market that could, again, if he did it again, there might be new things available to him and others.
This stuff has gotten rapidly cheaper. I mean, just because there's so many EVs on the market now, it's just gotten so feasible. And that's why I like using the 400 volt architecture, because most stock EVs are 400 volt. And so finding stuff for them is really easy and cheap. As opposed, and like my whole argument to using stock components is that it's tried and true and it's been engineered to be hammered on. And I mean, just like my truck doesn't go in when it rains. Like I drive that thing through anything, snow or rain or whatever, and not worry about it because it's all stock parts.
Yeah. And so actually, at the EV 101 class I attended recently, that's something that Michael Breen talks about too, is, especially when it comes to batteries, you want to make sure you're picking automotive grade batteries because the amount of draw you're going to be putting on them. You don't want to be picking up just random laptop batteries and making packs out of them and trying to put them in these conversions,
That's
right?
what Tesla did.
Well, no, I'm talking about like the budget ones.
That's what Jehu did.
Well, you got to be careful picking up the budget, super cheap batteries, unless you know how to do it right. But you want to pick automotive grade, like the Samsung and all those, the Panasonic batteries, so that you can really pull the amps you need out of those batteries, and it's going to give the motor what it wants, right, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, like you can DIY it like the way Jehu did, but he would protect them. He'd put them inside or whatever, and then also that was all done like one at a time, And then as far as the laptop batteries, that was the most. Oh, Jeffrey, thanks you, man. I'll see you later. That was the most, probably the most production ready battery was the 18650. So that's why I think Tesla went with that. But I get your point. Like,
I got a bail too.
Okay, yeah, it's getting late. We're gonna wrap it up here. Thanks a lot, Frank.
Yep, fine.
Okay, yeah. So just in the interest of wrapping it up,
So you want to go through the other
I
cards?
think the total was 11,000 for Johnny's truck, and what a cool project. Just real quick, well, I don't know if we should. We are how long we've been going? I don't want to make it too long.
We're about an hour into the recording, I believe.
All right. Well, the benefit is that we're all trying to get everybody together here and go over these numbers. So let's see. So good question. Maybe that should be Chris, that should be a theme. What would you want in your daily EV? Like, what would you want to add to it? What does people over time realize? Actually, all those questions that you want to ask, that could be a themed podcast coming up.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I mean, to me, it does. I don't know if everybody else cares or
100%.
anything, but to me, I mean, Johnny, it seems like you built an awesome truck, and I think that everybody that is a truck person loves to read about it and learn about it and watch you drive it all over the place, and that's awesome. You know, doing truck things, not just going to get milk. With that being said, you know, if somebody's trying to make a truck that people want to buy, I'm speaking about things like the Alpha Wolf truck, for example. Like that truck is clearly marketed to, in my opinion, to like millennials and young people that are wanting to go to the beach and doing things like that. Like that truck doesn't speak to me as like a truck person's truck, in my opinion. Other people may have different opinions, but you're clearly using your truck for truck things. And that's kind of the market that I'm interested in. It's a utilitarian type thing, and so as somebody that's been driving that thing around, and you kind of seem to be paving the way for that, I'm interested to know, you know, what kind of things would you like to have if you were, and how much would you want to pay for it? Not that you wouldn't build your own truck, but I'm talking about, because obviously you have and you do, and you probably will continue to do so. But I think if you're talking about that kind of mindset, you know, what kind of things are lacking that you would like to have now that the science experiment's done? You've got it running. You've been using the hell out of it. Runs great. You've grenaded some motors and built some control arms. You know, as you converge on a solution, you know, what kind of things are nice to haves from an electric standpoint? I think that's kind of like my biggest thing. And then, so that's question one. The next one is, we were talking about battery packs and how to size them and using automotive grade. And that's been something that I've been talking to several folks about. Our guys over at Revolt, they've been talking to Ron about it. Also, David from his Electric. You know, one of the things that doesn't seem to be talked a lot about is the analytical part of any of the design work. There's a lot of packaging exercises going on, and that's half the battle for sure, making everything fit. But how do you know what fastener sizes to use? And how do you know how many to use? And how do you know how much to torque them? And how do you know that the vibration environment isn't detrimental to the actual batteries that are inside of it? So when if you're building your own battery pack, how do you isolate all these things from different shock and vibration environments? These are things that I think with conversions over time, as they become more prevalent, are going to have to be considered, because it's going to take one fire or one incident where a conversion vehicle is going to have an issue because of an engineering solution that wasn't solved, and that's going to look really bad for the conversion scene if it hasn't already. I haven't heard of anything, but maybe you guys have. I don't know.
Well, that's I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually one of the areas of focus that Revolt is really aware about, and they talk about. In fact, we talked about that on the Tim Allen video about why they do liquid cooling on a lot of their systems, including the batteries. It's not just about performance, but it's also about making sure that, you know, because you're placing packs in different areas of the vehicle, that the ones in the front are going to be receiving more airflow, and the ones in front will be cooler just based on ambient temperature. And so cycling a coolant or really a liquid throughout the entire vehicle will help keep your pack balanced from a heat perspective, which will actually help the performance of the draw that you want from it. So yes, Revolt is very mindful of what you're talking about here, and they cool it. They do liquid cooling, not just for performance, but also for safety.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
and then I talked to Snow just the other day. They're talking about I think the liquid that they're using is non-conductive as well to make it even safer.
Oh my gosh! Okay, I got to see this in action. It's so cool. We took, and I could show you the raw clip if you want, where they actually are talking on it. They took it was a low charge, but it had a charge, an 18650, dropped it right into this. What's the coolant called, Johnny? Something glycol. And it's a non-conductive liquid that it just sat overnight in that liquid and did not short out the battery. And so the whole point is, if that coolant leaks and gets on your batteries, that it's not going to short out your system and or cause a fire.
Sure. And so this is a great example of that there's engineering solutions, but they all have trade-offs. So that's a great solution if you're trying to isolate everything. However, the thermal characteristics of that liquid is not as good as ethylene glycol, which is a water-based. So
true, but it is it's better than no liquid for sure. And a lot of conversions don't have liquid cooling.
So,
and I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So let me just interrupt for a sec. I think that we've got two great themes, as suggested from Chris, coming up. One is, what do you want in your daily EV? What do you feel like you need? What would you do better? What would you do the second time around? That will be a podcast. And then the second thing is, what are the fundamental engineering lessons that people need to know? And Chris and Johnny, I think, can help with that. I can do my best, but it's these two engineers that I think are really going to help with this. So we got two great podcasts coming up. And Chris, I'm roping you in, man. So
well, I just want a full disclosure. Yeah, I'm an engineer, degreed engineer. I work in the aerospace and defense industry. I got 25 years of experience, but I don't have the experience that Johnny has, and that is building the EVs to the level and to the caliber that he's done. So I am not as knowledgeable as he is in that regard. When you come to structural mechanics and dynamics, heat transfer, stuff like that, I have a master's degree in all that, and I design missiles for a living. So I can help with that. But Johnny's your guy, and I'm going to learn a lot from him asking questions like that in the meantime. I just want to put that out there.
No, that's fine.
We definitely should get Eddie on the same podcast too, because especially when it comes to the cooling and and he could probably answer some of those vibration questions too.
Yeah,
Eddie's another guy I'm going to interview next week. Eddie, Snow, and several others for this grant that I'm applying for.
Yeah. So in conclusion, from tonight's theme, we're willing to share this spreadsheet. It's just rough numbers from everybody that felt like throwing it in. All the way on the left here, you have your Kevin's DIY $2,500 car, and then you got a Tesla unit with 35,000 in it. You got a Hyper 9 with about 20 grand in it, and then you got Jonathan's car with some used parts and some older tech, but it does work. 14,000, and then you got Johnny's Hilux with a lot of elbow grease and some clever use of some used recycled parts, coming in around 11,000. This is without the vehicle. The rest are sort of similar. We got Jeffrey's 15,000, and then the El Rayo, which would be a great podcast in itself. Tom, I'm sorry, we're probably out of time to cover that one. But that's about 20,000, and we can get into that, and it performs well. And we could talk about it. And then I had another one I wanted to add, but we could save it for another time, is buying a complete vehicle that already runs and then just fixing the broken stuff. And that was, I bought it for about $2,000. I put $1,000 into it. And so the total was, about $3,000. And then I had some fun, and I sold it for about what I paid for it, back to the original person that converted it. So that could be a whole other podcast, because it has a great story. It went from coast to coast. And the El Rayo has its own story. So that's in a whole other podcast. So we got 4 podcasts coming up just from tonight. To go over it, we got what do you want in your daily EV, what it's going to make, the creature comforts, the performance, the reliability. What are you looking for? I would say probably charge times is a big deal, right? And then what is the fundamental engineering of what you need in your conversion? And then we got the whole El Rayo. We could probably do a whole podcast on that and a follow-up because it's been upgraded and changed. And then we also have the path of the Fiero. I could probably find the original owner. He's in California, and so that would be pretty cool. Among other things, it's just a rising tide over here. So bring your questions. This is what it's for. It doesn't matter where you come from or what your experience level, and so I appreciate everybody being here. So we're gonna probably end the recording here.
So Ron, go ahead, Tyler. We should definitely put it out there. So if you're watching this now on the recording, let us know in the comments which topic do you want to see first. Do you want to see the bus conversion? Do you want to answer Chris's questions about where do I go next? How do I get this started? What all that sort of stuff. Let us know in the comments, and also make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. So if you have a project, let us know, and we like to answer your questions and get into how to get into this conversion world, because this is just growing and growing and growing. So help this channel and this podcast grow so that we can bring more topics to you. So yeah, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and we'll see you Tuesday night if you want to join us live. The link is in the description, or watch it afterwards when it's posted.
All right. And thanks again to Tom Summers for being here. Tom's out there checking things out. Tom, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Oh, yeah. Hey, thanks, Ron. Thanks. This is the number one question you get anywhere you go is, hey, how much does it cost to do this? You guys touched on almost every aspect of this endeavor that we're in, all of the problems, the pitfalls, the various rabbit holes you can go down, and we could talk about this forever. I just want to say how grateful I am to catch some of this, and to you, Chris. I just crossed into Arizona. I'm juicing up here at the Wilcox Supercharger. We also at the EVLC are chasing some grant money, and so if we could connect, I would love that. And yeah, thanks you guys. Great. This is another great episode.
All right.
By the way, I when people ask me that question, and honestly, it gets asked all the time, I'm just going to give them a link to this podcast.
Yeah. How much? All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. We'll be hanging out here. I'm just going to end the recording. And Tom, well said. Well, thanks for putting a cap on that. That was good. Thanks a lot.